Corruption in Africa has become endemic, constituting the biggest threats to the growth and development of the African continent. From the private sector, the public sector, and indeed all ramifications of the society, you hardly will find a place where you cannot trace corruption. But this has held back the African continent from development for a very long time. Joining me today to take a look at these and several other issues on how to deal with corruption in Africa is the former pioneer chairman of Nigeria's anti-corruption institution, the EFCC, Mr. Nuhu Ribadu. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Corruption. Even the international institution says Africa is so corrupt, and you will not agree less that we have endemic corruption in Africa. Don't you think that this is one issue that even our leaders should begin to handle with a lot of seriousness?
You are right. Corruption probably is the single #1 problem why we are unable to develop and solve our own problems. Corruption is the reason why we are backward, we are behind. Corruption is the reason why the rest of the world is moving on and moving so fast. The rest of us are left behind. Corruption is associated with underdevelopment. And certainly Africa today is the #1 ground where you could say, yes, this is what is happening and what is going on. Without it, we are not likely going to do much in terms of improving ourselves, getting the necessities of life, infrastructures, and to be like the rest of the world. What is corruption? It means simple. The resources that you have, that is supposed to be for the common good of all, to be used for everybody, will end up being diverted by very few people. And when such diversion takes place, it will end up being used negatively, not to solve problems. Corruption simply means that public money, and indeed sometimes even private money, is taken out of what it should be used for, and then into wrong hands, wrong pockets. Those who are entrusted with the responsibility to use it for the common good of all will end up using it selfishly for themselves and those who are close to them, or they are co-conspirators. This is what corruption is all about. And wherever you have it, forget about development. Because for you to develop, for you to grow, you need the money. And the moment the money is taken out, there is no way, no magic again, you can get anything to get those things done. Corruption destroys people and leaders. It makes leaders thieves. In a simple way, it destroys their character. It makes them to be very unfair and selfish. It destroys democracy, because with corruption, you will not get free and fair elections.
Let me just find out this. Leadership in the nation is in place to help in development. Now, why is it that we have African leaders that are so embedded in corrupt practices that we find it difficult, and we keep having them come in and go, and they keep recycling themselves? And how do we break out of this similar vicious circle?
That's the tragedy of corruption, because the moment it gets in, it takes over, and it becomes literally the engine that drives everything. If you have corrupt people as leaders, when they get in, they now take over the state, take the money, use the same money to perpetuate themselves, use the money to destroy and compromise the whole process, for example, elections, and use it to more or less bully everybody and destroy whatever that can bring any good thing in the society, and they continue to remain. They will not want to leave. Leaders who are corrupt are those who are having good life and they don't want to leave it. If leadership is corrupt, then chances are every other thing will be corrupt in that system. I've been in the public service of Nigeria all my life, I have worked, well, close to now 30 years.
You worked in one institution that was termed as very corrupt.
Nigerian Police Force, yes. I did my life career there. I started right from the time when I became a lawyer, and I decided to go in there. And then I lived all through my life. I worked at all levels, and I ended up, of course, with an opportunity for me to also set up an anti-corruption agency. So I know it fairly well. And I've also traversed the world. I've been to almost all parts of the world in the name of addressing issues to do with good governance. And corruption is everywhere, especially where no measures are taken to ensure that it is not flourishing. Even in the US today, the moment that this system will relax or lax, or institutions will now allow things to get, you will see corruption taking over. African countries are seriously underdeveloped with challenges and difficulties. And to fight corruption sometimes can be extremely, extremely difficult. In terms of ability for you to successfully lead it, it will require almost like a suicidal approach. And a lot of them will want to continue, will want to remain, will want to ensure that they remain in that office for them to even achieve whatever little thing they can. Sometimes you need to be smart. If you go on and take it, it might likely just crash you completely.
Okay, let me take you back to the Nigerian, because let's talk from Nigeria, then we'll go to the other African countries. Just because you said you need to be smart, if not, it can get at you. Yeah. When you were given the responsibility of setting up an anti-corruption institution in Nigeria, yes, you had this fear of the system getting at you.
Yes. Well, luckily for me, I was very much prepared for the work. I was in the system, and I knew, of course, it was a very difficult and dangerous work. And I also understood clearly that if you fight corruption, it will fight you back. And that when you are going to fight corruption, it means you are going to confront the powerful people within the society, those who are in charge of the authorities, the government, and the very rich ones among us. They will certainly be the targets that you are going to confront. It's not going to be a Tea Party affair. It will mean confronting the most powerful. But it will also require some smart moves and skills and strategies and understanding of the system and the game. I understood the whole thing very well, and that's why we were able to successfully set up an agency that is still standing. It is a huge success story, given the environment then and how things were and the achievements that were recorded, and how still the institution is still standing, and that most of us who are in the forefront of it are still standing, and indeed even doing.
And people wonder, how long will you still stand?
Well, we are still very strong, and we are standing. We've succeeded. Nigerian story of fighting corruption is one of the most successful ones in the world today, no doubt about it. At the time when we were working, and when we worked in 2003 to 2007, it was world record in terms of convictions and recoveries. And there was no anti-corruption agency or law enforcement in the world that had that record of success in terms of convictions, in terms of records of, recoveries and so on.
And does it also bother you that you were a serving police officer when you were in charge of the Nigerian Anti-Corruption Institution?
Yes. And
a lot of people say, okay, that institution succeeded in the fight against corruption, but the very principal institution, the police, was not that. You had this negative image of it, and before most Nigerians, that the police institution is very corrupt. Now, but you still had the people that were in the anti-corruption team. Majority are the policemen. So, where is the disconnect? Where is the problem? If they succeeded here and they cannot perform in this one.
See, this is why, it also will help to explain what I told you earlier, is that people may not necessarily be corrupt, but it's the system that makes them to be corrupt. And I totally disagree with people who just want to call Nigerians corrupt. It's wrong. Just because today we have terrorists or people who are blowing themselves as suicide bombers does not make Nigerians terrorists. All of us are terrorists. No. Just because we have corruption in our own system today doesn't make every single Nigerian a corrupt person. Just because we do have corruption in the Nigerian police force doesn't mean that every policeman in Nigeria is corrupt. And the story of the EFCC is a testimony to that. It's a clear demonstration that individuals will behave and do things if given direction and proper guidance and ability for the environment to support good things. And they will do very well. You are right. EFCC originally were more or less almost 100% members of the Nigerian police force. All of us, we got in there and we decided from the very onset that we are not going to allow corruption to be part of us. We took corruption out of it. I personally said I will not be corrupt, and I was never a corrupt person, and I was not going to allow corruption to come in. And I'm not going to allow any officer that was going to work with me.
So it's a leadership issue.
Very much. And that was the magic. These same members of the police force that were regarded and everywhere categorized as probably one of the worst. Even perceptions, records available consistently showed that Nigeria police was one of the worst and most corrupt institutions in Nigeria. But out of that institution, individuals came out and performed amazing things. Because the result that we recorded in the EFCC is a clear testimony that Nigerians can do it, and that we don't have to be we don't have to bring anybody outside to come and get this done. And it's simply because we insulated ourselves from it, and we confronted the problem head on without allowing it to eat us or to be part of it.
Okay, now let's go on this break, and when we come back, we'll go on to several other issues bordering on how to administer this continent that is called Africa. You're welcome back. Now, if you just joined us, I've been speaking with Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, the former anti-corruption chief in Nigeria. We left off talking about your coming into politics.
Yes.
I guess it's because you felt that you can provide the leadership challenge that definitely Nigeria has.
Yes.
You also bothered that, like we said earlier, Africa is plagued by this lack of good leaders.
Yes.
And is there a relationship between that and the growing insurgency in Africa today? Is there a relationship with leadership and the reason why we have rise in insurgency?
Well, in a way, yes, maybe, and probably also not so. Depends on what is going on, what is happening. For example, the militancy that is ongoing in the world is a global phenomenon. It started 3 decades ago or so, far, far places, and it continued. So many countries and societies have encountered and experienced that. We are not different. Sadly, it is with us today. Our ability to prepare and confront it is what matters. Terrorism, if you want to call it so, extremism or whatever, has been ongoing in the world for a while. I mean, a decade ago, you saw what happened in the US, or more than that, the 9/11. It's not different from everything that is going on here in Nigeria or all other places. But what matters is the response.
Now, why do we have that weak response?
It's sadly because of poor leadership, terrible, incompetent institutions, and those who are assigned with the responsibility or responsibilities to address it. The time when it came to Nigeria, the extremism and insurgency, it made poor and terrible, bad governance and bad leadership and bad institutions, poor law enforcement and justice sector. And it is happening all over the world. Wherever it goes, and then it meets such, bad leadership, poor institutions, it will take over. It happened in Afghanistan, it happened in Southwest Waziristan, that is Pakistan, it happened in Somalia, it recently happened in Mali. Wherever you have weak institutions, weak governance, poor leadership, terrorism or extremism will take over. This is what happened in Nigeria. At the time when it came, it made institutions that were near zero in terms of performance and ability to maintain law and order and security. This is where we are, and that is the tragedy of our own case today. It is ongoing and it is continuing until, of course, we have leadership that understands it, an ability to confront and get solutions. We will continue to have it.
Now you talked about weak institutions, weak law enforcement agencies. Now, this is one thing that is structured with Africa, yes. Weak institutions, weak law enforcement agencies. Yes. So with this, are we saying we cannot deal with this issue of rising militancy?
It can be solved. It can be solved. When you have people who knows what to do and do it honestly, not many Nigerians will now remember that at the point 419 almost took over the country. When we got in, we stopped it. I hope you can remember. Yeah. Yes, we stopped it. We stopped it. In 2003, when we started the war against 419, within 6 months to 1 year, we literally took them off all. We took the money from them, recovered it. Some people, we took over $100 million from them, and we returned it to the victims. When we almost stopped 419, few Nigerians will remember that. So it's the same thing with all other criminal activities, organized crimes, whether it is kidnapping or whether it is terrorism.
So intelligence gathering is very...
It's not, it's more than that. It's one little part of it. It's about the whole the whole justice process. It's about institutions, it's about structures, it's about individuals. It's about how you respond generally to law enforcement and law and order. Intelligence gathering is belittling it. I hear so many people talking about it, but it is a lot more than that. It's far, far bigger than just one little part of law enforcement.
Have you in any way made any proposal to any African country, maybe leaders, that look, this is how to go about dealing with this rising? And what was their response like?
I worked in Afghanistan for about 1 year. I was in Somalia. I did a couple of things around the world to do with this. And some of them have got it fairly well. Some of them are getting it right, and they are overcoming it. And what is central is about leadership. It's about political leadership at the highest level, a leadership that is going to be fair and just, a leadership that is going to be modern and can connect with people, a leadership that will be able to attract quality people to come and work with, a leadership that will be able to bring our best to be in charge of strategic institutions. In the case of Nigeria, we somehow got it the opposite. There are others who are doing fairly well now, and they have to some extent succeeded. We've seen it happen in Algeria, how they are able to control it. We saw it in Indonesia. We are already looking at seeing what India is doing. They are not different, it's all the same thing. They are all the same, basically the same. But we also see the failure in Mali that led to the collapse of almost the entire system, that Europeans had to come in to save them.
Let me just, recently the former Ghanaian president was in Nigeria, that is talking about Jerry Rawlings, and he made a statement talking about corruption. He said Nigeria must fight corruption if it will avoid the Arab Spring type of an experience. And some weeks ago also I had one Nigerian pastor who was also a vice presidential candidate said that calling for the Ghana experience, what Jerry Rawlings did in Ghana, killing some leaders. And do you think what that clergy said and what Rawlings said are things that paths we need to tread in Africa?
My own fear is not necessarily the Arab Spring kind of experience or even the Ghana experience of killing leaders. My fear is that we will lose Nigeria as a country. My fear is that we may end up into a civil war, because it's destroying government, and federal government particularly. Corruption is destroying federal government of Nigeria. Corruption is making it impossible for us to have a good police force. Corruption is destroying the Nigerian army. And we are confronted with problems and difficulties daily. We will end up, if we are not careful, losing Nigeria as a country.
So we need a revolution. What type?
I don't want to use this word revolution because it connotes something different. We need a change. We need a change. We need good people to come in. Those who believe in Nigeria.
Okay, let me go to this issue. I don't know if you want to talk on it, but that is concerning the panel you just superintended over recently. That's talking about the petroleum sector, because you cannot talk about Nigeria without the oil sector.
Yes.
And of recent, again, even in the Nigerian parliament, it's an issue that has come up again.
Yes.
What did you notice, and how can we get things back to shape?
You see, I was invited to come and head the panel on revenue coming from the petroleum industry. And I accepted it. It was a very difficult decision because I'm not in the PDP, that is today ruling Nigeria. I was then in Afghanistan. And when I was called by my country to come and play a role in helping to address problem of corruption and enthronement of transparency and accountability, I found it difficult to say no. I accepted it, a very difficult decision, very unpopular one with most of my own people and supporters, including even my party. But I knew it was a good thing for our country. And we worked hard. I worked without taking one penny from anybody. I refused to even take the allowance that were given. I said I was going to do it honestly and to the best of whatever I can. And we worked for about 6-7 months. And in that report, we brought out the ills and the difficulties in that sector. We brought out the corruption that is ongoing and taking place. We made recommendations for the changes that if you implemented, even that alone will change the industry and will probably save this country. We submitted it, and it was a public affair. The world saw what exactly happened at that time, and the president accepted it. He said he was going to implement it. That was in October. We're talking about this November, December, January, February. We are now in March, 6 months. It has not been implemented. They have accepted. I'm worried. I'm concerned. Because those of us that did that work did it at a very, very high cost and difficulty. And it was the right thing, and we were given the promise that it will be implemented. And it is a good thing for our country. It's about fighting corruption. It's about stopping the wastages that is going on there. It's about redirecting it and bringing it to the rest how things are done in the world.
Okay, you expressed a fear just in the course of the discussion that your fear is that we don't lose Nigeria. Now, what is the implication of having a troubled Nigeria in Africa? I'm talking about if eventually, if this corruption is not handled and you get Nigeria into crisis period, crisis situation, war situation, what could be the implication on the African continent?
It's frightening. I hope that we will never see it. Because Nigeria is the biggest African country, is the biggest black country in the world. Today, people are talking about we are close to 170 million. It makes sense for us to have this number. It can help us. The story of Nigeria is not a one-day story. It's not even a 1 month or 1 year or 10 years or 50 years. It's about a country that is a promise for the future. We wouldn't want to lose that. We shouldn't allow it to happen. It will be like losing, not just for Nigeria, but the black man and Africa. We cannot allow something to happen to our country because it's the hope of the black race. And coming together and standing together matters. It's the future. We may be having difficulties and challenges as we continue in this journey of nationhood. It will take Africa far, far step backward. And we saw it happen in so many places. We cannot allow even to go into period of crisis and wastage and destruction and then go back to square one where we started. We saw it happen in Sierra Leone. We saw it happen in Liberia. We saw it happen in Cote d'Ivoire. Some of these countries wasted 10 years, but they all came back to where they started. We saw it happening in Congo. It happened in Rwanda. There are so many countries who will go into crisis, kill themselves, waste their opportunities, waste their time, and still come back to where they started. I pray that it will never happen in our own country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ribadu.
Thank you very much.
I do believe you're enjoying every bit of this interview with my guests. Thank you so much. My name remains Eshomomoh. Bye-bye.